What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. I want to break down some big news that came out that could be creating a nice buying opportunity for stocks like Tesla, as we may be seeing some downside coming in the upcoming days, but that downside may be followed by a big bounce because we still have the robotaxi event coming up. So I'm going to break down what's going on with this new rating change for the USA and what happened the last time we saw something like this. I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla stock as well as we have more news coming out, why there's going to be a big buying opportunity coming, in my opinion. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends on June 3rd. You also qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, so check out my link down below. Anyways, let's talk about the market. So, as you guys can tell, Tesla's been pushing quite a bit to the upside, but here's the first thing that happened. Yesterday, after the market closed, Tesla started to dip. Tesla was down over 2% in the after hours, and we saw a SPY and the QQQ down over 1% each, or almost 1%. So, why did the market start dipping in the after hours? Well, there was some big news that came out about how Moody was basically cutting the US's credit rating from a triple A rating to a double A rating. And they were saying this because of the fact that there was massive government debt that is concerning them. They're saying that the US national debt, is continuing to grow and it's approaching the $37 trillion mark. They're also talking about how we have a massive governmental deficit in our budget. So right here, the federal budget deficit's running at 2 trillion a year. That's more than 6% of the GDP, which is absolutely insane. And they mentioned that policy is not really reversing this so far. Looking at more things they mentioned, you guys can see that our consumer sentiment's at one of the lowest levels we've seen in many, many years. All right, consumer sentiment's also very, very low alongside consumer expectations. And then right now, the inflationary expectations are very, very high. Although we're getting good inflationary numbers right now, there's a lot of fear that inflation is going to spur back up because of the supply shocks that are going to be coming soon, and also because of the tariffs. So you want to keep all of that in mind, right? It's not just me saying this. We actually have Walmart coming out. They made the announcement they're going to be increasing their prices once their earnings were released because of tariffs and factors like that. President Trump said he wasn't really happy about that. He said Walmart should eat the tariffs. I'm going to show you his exact quote, by the way. I'm not going to try to be biased when I say this. But if anything, Walmart are arguing that because of the tariffs, that we should be expecting higher prices. Amazon said the same thing and many other retailers. But then President Trump said something right over here. He said that Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reasons of raising prices through the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valid customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So that's what President Trump said. He has a different view, and he believes that Walmart should just, once again, just take it in, eat the tariffs, and not really, take it out on the customers. That's what he's arguing. And then he also said this. The consensus of almost everybody is that the Fed should cut rates sooner rather than later. Too late, Powell, a man legendary for being too late, will probably blow it again, but who knows? So that's what President Trump is saying once again after Jerome Powell gave his speech. He said it this morning, so obviously he's not happy with Jerome Powell, especially because Jerome Powell didn't mention cutting, right? He said that there's going to be a risk of higher inflation for longer because of potential supply shocks. So please keep that in mind. That's some big news that also came out. So as a result of this chaos with all the fears about inflation and the fact that the US's credit rating is now going down, I do anticipate this move to continue. And the one thing you want to know about Tesla is that it likes to follow the overall market for the most part. So if you don't believe me, look at this chart right here. Right over here, you guys can see this is Tesla right over here, and then this right here is SPY in the blue. So they pushed together, they came down together, they started uptrending together. Then as Tesla was dipping at the same time that SPY was dipping, during that time the tariffs were going up, and they've both been recovering together since. You guys can see the trend is very similar. But there are periods, and this is where the price pairs ratio comes from, when Tesla outperforms SPY. There's other periods when SPY outperforms Tesla. But you guys can see there's a similar trend here. They uptrended together, they came down together, and they pushed up together. If you look at the QQQ versus Tesla, it's the same thing, right? They pushed up together, they came down together, they started to uptrend together. came down. They continued to uptrend. Tesla was actually a little bit weaker during this period. This was like towards the early part of this year. As Tesla saw their sales declining, we saw the share price dump, but so did the QQQ as a result of the tariffs. And notice they formed a bottom at a very similar time, and they've both been uptrending since. So that just goes to show but algorithms dictate price action, and Tesla's making big moves as a result of algos and many other factors. So why do I say that? Because when the market comes down, this is going to be kind of like counter measuring Tesla in a way, like, right? It's going to be hurting Tesla to an extent. And when you go back on the S&P 500 chart, if you go to our daily time frame, we actually had something very similar happen before. So back on August 1st, 2023, the news came out that the US lost its AAA rating from Fitch over worries about the nation's finances, and they gave us a double A rating as well. So a different group gave us a downgrade back in August of 2023. All right, and what did the market do? Let's actually go back to the chart just to go over this. So all the way back to August, I think is right here. August of 2023, we basically saw SPY. I'm sorry, I think August is way back here. Sorry about that, guys. So if we go all the way back to August, that's pretty far back. Sorry, I'm going like pretty far back to look at this. But if we go back to what happened in August of 2023, when this news came out right over here, okay, SPY was at 456. And then overnight, it dumped all the way down to about 449 and continued to fall down towards like 446. And we saw this big downtrend ever since that news came out about the fact that the US's credit rating went down. So that's some very, very big news. Not the best of news, at least for us moving forward. You guys can see this dumped over 3% during this period right over here during the early periods of the big downgrade, and it continued to fall almost. That's about a 5% move down for the market during that time before we saw some kind of bounce. So my point in saying this is that the market makes crazy big moves when we get lots of like bad pieces of news, and this could insinuate a bit of a pullback all the way down towards the lower 580s on SPY. I do think that we might be retesting 585, then eventually 580. And we'll see if that holds. If not, there is that gap to fill, but we'll see about that. So you want to be very careful. With the QQQ, it's the same thing essentially. If we go all the way back to 2023, the same thing essentially happened. Um, Basically, back in August of 2023, we saw the QQQ do the same thing, right? This was pushing very, very nicely. Then, ever since we got that downgrade news in our credit rating, we saw this thing dump. Sorry, I think I'm in 2022. I'm sorry, guys. 2023 is over here. But anyways, we got the news right over here. And then as soon as that news came out, the QQQ went from 383 and it dumped all the way down to 372. It dumped 10 points. It continued to downtrend a total of over 4%. So that's pretty crazy, at least so far from what I was looking at. So my point is that this was pretty wild, and we saw a massive, massive sell off that started ever since we got that Fitch downgrade. So Tesla, back in August of 2023, did the same thing. If we go back right over here, you guys could see Tesla made a very, very similar move right over here. Tesla was trying to hold up. It was doing a good job, and then we saw this thing just respect the downtrend. Tesla went from being on July 31st at 269 and dumped all the way down to about 249. It dumped about 20 points within that period. So it was down quite a bit as well. So, anyways, I was just trying to show you guys what history told us when we saw Fitch downgrade the US's rating. So that makes me suspect there's going to be some kind of downside move coming towards not only 340, but we're going to be watching like that 333 to 330 area on Tesla. I do think we could be dipping closer to that range. And then we'll see what kind of reaction we get from there. We'll be watching this 333 area to 330, and we'll see what kind of move we make from there. So please watch that very closely. When it comes to other pieces of news, there's news coming out that there's about 10,000 Cybertrucks that remain unsold right now. So they're just waiting to see if they could get those sales back up. That amounts to about $800 million just waiting in their inventory. But as time goes on, I do believe Tesla will sell them just for the time being. You just have to know that there's hardships right now. There's, recessionary fears and factors like that that are still affecting Tesla sales. But that also aligns with the fact that, Tesla is going to be looking at more discounts and ways to get those sales up. And simultaneously, we have to wait and see what happens with their May to June period, which is when their sales tend to be stronger. So during April, they tend to be a little bit weaker. So keep that in mind. Tesla's also going to be adding Chipotle's executive Jack, Hartung to the board as well. That's some more news that's coming out, which is decent. Hopefully, that he could make a big difference for the company and help us out as well with his ideas and such. So, just wanted to put that out there. Wish everyone the best, at least nonetheless. So, anyways, as far as Tesla's going, we have a slight bearish divergence, and I do anticipate we could be dipping towards 333 to start things off. And if that doesn't hold, it's possible we go all the way down to about 325, which is where this imbalance is. We'll have to see if 325 holds or not. If we hold 325, we could see that as a potential buying opportunity. But if not, we may just continue to fall. So I would say once we get below like the 330 area, if we do start dipping that low, that's a potential buying opportunity to slowly dollar cost average. If we don't hold 315, there's also this big gap to fill down here on Tesla, taking us down to 300. I don't think it's going to drop that hard, at least for now, but I do think there's going to be a risk of us seeing the 320s on Tesla. And I'll be looking for a buying opportunity to buy, potential swings going into the robotaxi event, because I still think Tesla could run into like the 370s to 400s by the time we get to June. But for now, it's going to be a temporary dip. So look at this as an opportunity to load up on whatever it is that you guys want to load up on. I thank you all so much for listening, and I just wish you all the best, at least nonetheless. So there's going to be some downside coming, most likely for the markets, not just for Tesla. If you look at other stocks like Nvidia, it's also down quite a bit. It's going to be testing 130. If that doesn't hold, I'm going to be looking for an attempt to dip all the way down to like 125. I do see Apple also dipping and many other big tech stocks. I mean, Apple's going to be dipping to like 205. If that doesn't hold, there's a gap to fill down to like 198. But then even if we dip like that, right? Even if we do get some kind of like big sell off like this, we could just see that as a buying opportunity for us to like bounce again. But you guys understand my point. The market may get a temporary dip, but that's another opportunity. Same thing for Tesla. Might dip a little bit all the way down towards 333 to 330. And we'll see if we bounce at least from there. So my point is Tesla has some downside potential. I could be looking for us to dip more, but then we'll see if we get some kind of big rebound as time goes on. I'll be watching this as an opportunity to load up on shares or longer term options for the big event that's coming up. So I just want to give you guys insights about that. Anyways, I wish you all the best, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.